Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. And you know we love the Big C tribe in Africa, so thanks for following Big C Sports. You know we love you in Canada, but Big C, there's no one we love more than you good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going on February 5th, 2018 down south? Big C, your thoughts?
I don't know, Charlton. I'm a little dazed and confused. I mean, it was an electrifying night. I woke up this morning at the bottom of my staircase, and I think I'm at the file of a soft suit against my stairs.
That is something good. You might want to talk to the builder about that. I hear that a lot of people were tripping, and a lot of people were tripping in Pennsylvania, especially in Philadelphia. Big C, they were even tripping up in New York. I think it's the Empire State Building. They actually had it lit up green, and I think they thought the Jets won the Super Bowl last night, Big C. They got to know in New York it was Philadelphia that won, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, that's bitter rivalries, the Giants and the Eagles.
Yeah.
They literally hate each other, so I know there was some appalled people in New York last night when they lit up the Empire State Building green, and the Jets was like, why? We're not playing.
Yeah, that's funny. I thought it's a kind of a, people say, well, it was an affront to the people in Boston because they have this New York and this Boston kind of rival thing going on. But I thought that was great to see the Empire State Building lit up in green for the Philadelphia Eagles. I know the Eagles can fly, but I didn't know the green Eagles can fly and glow in the dark. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, the birds had the word way yesterday, Charlton. So, you know, you have to be careful when you're under birds when they're flying, because every now and then make a deposit on you. So you want to be kind to them.
That's very true. So, you know, we had a Super Bowl that some people consider a very high scoring Super Bowl, the most yards ever in any Super Bowl, Big C. Also,
not only that, Charlton, in any NFL game. That was the highest yardage output between two teams in NFL history.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I know you're a defensive guy, so maybe you were not turned on by it. I know there are a lot of offensive people that love seeing a 41-33 game where you have 74 points scored. And, you know, could have been a penalty at the end, who knows. But there's a couple of questions that people have in their minds. You know, why is your best defensive back not playing in the game when he plays in 98% of the games throughout their season? And then also, you got to look at Philadelphia and their coach. He was a kind of a backup player most of his career. I know he backed up Brett Favre, but for him to have a quarterback that's also a backup that comes in and win a Super Bowl for him, just give me your thoughts on the game, such a high-scoring game. As a defensive guy, is that something that did not turn you on, Big C, or what were your thoughts on the game, Big C?
Well, Charlton, it was an interesting game in many ways. You talk about Coach Doug Peterson, who spent his career mainly backing up Brett Favre and Dan Marino.
Yep.
But, you know, he's also been an assistant coach in the NFL under Andy Reid a couple times.
Yeah.
To have a backup quarterback, and this is the third time in NFL history that a backup quarterback has gone in and won a Super Bowl, Charlton.
Yeah.
So this is not uncharted territory for Nick Foles.
Yeah.
He did an admirable job. When you look at Nick Foles' last two games, Charlton,
yeah,
no quarterback outplayed him. Even though Brady had more yards than him yesterday, no quarterback has outplayed him in his last two games versus the Vikings and the Patriots.
Yeah.
No turnovers, Charlton. He had one interception that was really knocked in the air by his own receiver that should have just fallen to the ground.
Yeah.
But you talk about somebody playing a flawless game, Charlton. I think when they brought him in, Charlton, they looked back to 2014 to, you know, what did Nick Foles do well in 2014? Let's bring up some of those plays out of that Chip Kelly playbook that allowed Nick Foles to be successful after his first couple of games of taking over for Carson Wentz. And you saw a lot of that in that run-pass option that they ran all night long. It kept the linebackers close and the defense confused for New England.
Yeah. I tell you what. Now, we don't really know what's happened so far. I know Belichick is considered going into this game the greatest coach, and it's amazing how things can change in a dime. But we saw this happen before, and you know, throughout. I mean, Al Davis was notorious for doing this to Marcus Allen, to sit a guy that was in his prime, just because of something that happened or whatever it was. He did things to hurt the team But as long as he can prove to that one player that I'm the guy that controls your career. I'm not saying Belichick's that guy at all, but I know a lot of people say it's a short leash with this guy. And as a defensive guy, the Patriots spent the whole year, Big C, in preseason, before that the OTAs, then the regular season, and then you go into winning their division, and then you go into the playoffs. Here's a guy that in Butler, they could count on him. He helped them win a Super Bowl against Seattle. You have, up until kickoff, he did not know that he wasn't starting. So you're telling all of your defenders that they got to get everything, get all the glue together, get on the same page, and then right before kickoff, you tell your top guy that he's not playing, Big C. Is that something that sits well with the defensive players for his team, Big C? Your thoughts?
It fits well with no player, Charlton. I don't care what sport you're playing. You've been a starter all year long. You played in 98% of the defensive plays throughout the regular season and playoffs, and all of a sudden you're benched, whether it's some team infraction or whatever.
Yep.
You know, you sit a player for a series, you sit him for a quarter, you sit him for a half.
Yep.
But at some point you got to find a way to bring that player back in, incorporate him back in with that starting unit that he's used to working with, that they all have. They're on the same repertoire page, Charlton.
Yeah.
And when you disrupt that ebb and flow, if you look at the New England defensive backs in this game, Charlton, they had a very difficult time making open field tackles.
Yeah.
Malcolm Butler is one of the surest open field tacklers that you have.
I know.
But you know, when you think about Belichick, he's done this with players. Jamie Collins, you know, who's an all-pro pass rusher. You got rid of him 2 years ago to Cleveland in the middle of the season. He's done this to several players, Charlton. He got rid of Randy Moss in the middle of the season when he got rid of him.
Yeah.
But, you know, one of the things about when you listen to your press clippings, and Bill listens to it like anybody else, he's a human being, even though he acts narcissistic when he's giving an interview or answering questions.
Yep.
But, you know, when you go out there and you have players counting on each other, this is what team sports are. This is not individual sports.
Yeah.
You know, and when you take that out, you know, because they lost two critical players in this game. They lost Butler on defense, they lost Cook on offense.
Yeah.
But Butler will make a tackle. When we saw guys grasping air for New England on defense and not making tackles in the secondary, and they're making average players look all pro. I mean, Nelson Aguilar got away from several tackles, and Butler most likely would have been covering him.
Yeah.
So when you think about the difference in the game, this was a game that, you know, got out-coached and outplayed in from the New England perspective.
Yeah, you got to think about that, too. This segment sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C says that you can drive a car or you could drive a Cadillac. I go back to Butler, Big C, and I go back to how I even look at Deion Sanders at times when he played for the Cowboys and when he also played for the 49ers when they were winning Super Bowls in 93 and 94. And I look at what happened to the Seattle Seahawks when they were going to throw the ball on the goal line with about less than 30 or 40 seconds to play in the game. It was Butler who recognized the coverage because of practice, okay? I remember him specifically saying, I saw that in practice. I saw that play in practice, and he used his instinct to jump the gun, and that's why he picked off Russell Wilson back in the Super Bowl when they played down in the desert. Now, you take all of his instincts and his study, and Belichick decides he's going to take that guy out of the biggest game of the year for the New England Patriots. And this is a team that, even with that, they could have won the game. It was a good enough game. But that's what they took out of the game. Not just that they took out of a great player. They took out a guy who studied so well, Big C. And as a defensive guy, you know this. He studied so well to help them beat Seattle. He studied everything that Philly could have done. And that's why when he said, I could have helped us win that game, he said that out of experience. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, nobody likes to be sit down out of the game. And when you take starters out of the game, there's nothing wrong with it. You have a mental impact on the rest of the defenders that are out on the field because they're sitting there trying to figure out what's wrong.
Yeah.
You know, 100% of their concentration is not on the game. And you could see that. You know, being a former defensive player, you like to see some hitting going on. You like to see some tackles made. And that secondary for New England was so devoid of making tackles in the game yesterday. It was almost embarrassing.
It was.
You know, it looked almost like a 7-on-7 contest. Like players were wearing flags. Let me just grab the flag, and if I grab the flag, you know, the official will blow it dead right here.
Yep.
But I saw no one from New England punish any receiver from Philadelphia. And so at that point, the receivers were unintimidated, Charlton.
Yeah.
They would run their routes not with fear. You have to instill some fear in a receiver periodically. Take a penalty.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. It's just a 15-yard pass.
Yeah.
But take the penalty. But when you don't do that, and I understand you're trying to make the NFL a gentleman and safer game.
Right.
But a championship game, Charlton, you got 5 months to recover from it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So you take it all out on people. Malcolm Butler will not be with New England next year. He's a free agent, so
Yeah.
he's gone.
Yeah.
You know, when he got back today, he packed his bags and said, "C'est la vie."
Yeah.
You know, but you know the problem with that is that you disrupted the continuity of this whole defense. And maybe when you think about Matt Patricia,
Yeah.
the defensive coordinator
Going to
who
Detroit.
gave up 44 points
Yeah.
in a Super Bowl,
Yeah.
you know, how happy can Detroit be with him coming in? How
Yeah.
ecstatic. I mean, you get rid of a coach that was 9-7
Yeah.
or a guy to give up 970 yards in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, Detroit. Here's our new guy. And again, we wish everyone success, but sometimes you got to look at things and wonder why. You know, the thinking is, I look at Foles, congratulations to him. He's going to Disneyland, Big C, so he gets to go to Disneyland like a lot of guys want to do when they win a game. But I got to bring this point up, too. Now, we look at Foles. He actually played at Westlake High School, I believe, down in Texas, down in Houston growing up. And then we know he went to Arizona and learned to throw the ball better in the Pac-12 conference at the time. So here he is as a backup. And it shows the same thing that helped Butler, that Butler could have made a difference in this game.
You know who succeeded him, Charlton, in college?
Who's that?
Nick Foles actually went to Michigan State,
Uh-huh.
and he transferred from Michigan State.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins succeeded Nick Foles at Michigan State.
Isn't that something? Isn't that something? And now he's trying to succeed him on a Super Bowl team, but Kirk Cousins is not going to get anyone in the Super Bowl. But I look at Nick Foles, the way he was prepared for the game. So even when Carson Wentz went down, you notice there was really no drop-off with Nick Foles when he came in. I think that next game, he had, I think, over 300 yards passing. And, of course, they had to work out some of the kinks, Big C. But I contrast him with Malcolm Butler in the fact that they studied the playbook enough to know what to expect. There were times in the game that I saw, Big C, where Foles was making some check-off plays because he recognized the defense that New England was in, and that's why he was able to throw the ball so well downfield. It's not like they tried to go in there and not lose the game. Peterson went in there and wanted to win the game, but that's because he had a guy that's prepared. With all that said, do you think he can stay there next year, Big C, with all the money that's on the table for him, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I'm quite sure he'll say that. When you think about the money between the two quarterbacks, it's less than $15 million on the table for two quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You got a quarterback that won a Super Bowl. You got a quarterback that you hope that can come back.
Yeah.
Until that quarterback gets on the field, he's 95% healthy.
Yeah.
You don't know what his status is going to be. Now, this reminds me of the New York Giants when Phil Simms went down and Jeff Hostetler came in and won the Super Bowl down in Tampa.
Yeah.
Versus the Buffalo Bills on that wide right kick.
Yep.
You know, when you look at how the defensive stature was set up in this game, Charlton, you knew what Tom Brady would do.
Yeah.
And that's how he was coached against. Let Tom throw the ball.
Yep.
But don't let the running game beat us. And that's what you did. You took White out of the equation. Last year, if you recall, White had 14 receptions in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Deion Jones, the middle linebacker, was designed to cover White last year for Atlanta.
Yeah.
Deion Jones got tired, so when it came time to run the ball, New England had success running the ball.
Yeah.
This year they put Jenkins on White.
Yeah.
Shut White down. He only had a couple of receptions in the game.
Yeah.
The big difference was the defensive adjustments that were made in this contest and before this contest that New England couldn't keep up with.
Yeah.
When you think about the defensive coordinator for Philadelphia
Yeah.
versus New England.
Yeah. I think about that point, Big C, and you look at these last two Super Bowls, and of course, if you're in the Super Bowl, of course, you're either going to win or lose. That's the way this playoffs is set. It's not a best of 7. So congratulations to New England for getting there again. You know, 8 back-to-back, 8 years in a row consecutive, the AFC Championship game. We know what they've done in their Super Bowls. You know, they're 5 Super Bowl wins, and they have now 3 Super Bowl losses with Brady and Belichick at the helm. Nothing to be ashamed of. No one else can even say they've been to that many Super Bowls. But I did notice something you brought up earlier, too. They got beat by a backup quarterback. And I know Belichick is a guy that was on the defensive side of the ball when the Giants under Coach Parcells won their 2 Super Bowls, Big C. He was a guy, but as you mentioned, he was also on the team when the Patriots had lost a Super Bowl when Belichick was when he was down there in New England and they lost to Green Bay in the Super Bowl, and you had Parcells as the head coach. So I want to get your thoughts, though, as a defensive guy. Did you see anything? Well, you were kind of high on Foles anyway, so I can't say you saw anything different. But what is it about him that made you so confident that he would not be a liability going through the playoffs and ultimately the Super Bowl, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, who said he was a liability, Charlton, other than our media brother?
Yeah.
You know, everybody wanted to anoint, Tom going into the game that he can't be beat.
Yeah.
Nick Foles, like I said, if you look at what he did to the Vikings 2 weeks ago, Charlton,
yeah,
he was undaunted, and it also gave you the statistics that he has the highest completion percentage in NFL history.
Yeah, you
of
did.
any quarterback who's attempted 100 passes in the playoffs. And he didn't fall off here in the Super Bowl at all. But another thing, Charlton, you spoke about that previous Super Bowl loss with the Patriots against the Packers, I think it was in 94.
Yeah.
Okay? You got to realize that Bill Belichick has 2 losses against Doug Peterson being on the other side of the ball, okay?
Yeah.
That 94 team, when the Green Bay Packers beat them, Doug Peterson was a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
He was the guy assisting with the play calls in that game with McCarthy and Favre.
Yeah.
He's the same guy that was on the sideline this weekend, yesterday, assisting with the play calls against that defense that Bill Belichick was help running.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, he understands what Bill Belichick does defensively. People didn't understand that going into the game. But Peterson understands Belichick defensively in big games. Just like he did in 94 when Green Bay beat them. It was the same attack. And if you go back and you look at some of the plays that Favre ran in that game against that New England defense, he did a lot of that run-pass option.
Yeah, 97
and
Super Bowl, I
That's
think.
the same thing they did here.
Yeah, 97 Super Bowl is when that one happened, I believe. And when I think about what you just brought up, Big C, that shows me that when we look for coaches, and I look at him, and I just want to contrast him to John Gruden, because here's a guy that came in his second year and got the Eagles to win a championship. But he'd have been given some opportunity before. He didn't come out of doing television and then decide that he's going to get a chance to get, multiple millions of dollars a year for not doing anything over the past decade. Now, we talk about how to build a team. I think Belichick, he's going to have people come to New England because they keep winning. But one thing he's never going to get back, and I know sometimes it's easy to say never, he's never going to get players that really believe in him because they know he'll throw them under the bus, even your best player. And so even what does that mean for even a guy like Tom Brady? People would say, well, he would never throw Tom under the bus. Well, think about this. Had he played the best players that he had available on defense, maybe Tom would have got Super Bowl number 6. I know maybe people don't want to hear that, but if he's willing to not do everything that it takes to help a team win, what makes you think he won't throw Tom under the bus if Tom has a bad game, going into next year, Big C? Now, I know they don't have a backup quarterback yet, but they will. But how do you trust a guy that you work your butt off to get to the biggest game in the universe, and when you get there, they leave one of your better guys at home? They have to lose a little bit of respect for him, even though they may not have the balls to tell him. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I don't know. This has been his MO. I mean, this is not the first play he set down. And that's the thing that everybody has to remember. Yes, it's the largest stage, the Super Bowl, but Belichick has made these moves. I mean, Randy Moss set an NFL record for touchdowns and yards in a season.
Yeah.
And we're gone 2 years later, okay? So it's not about having loyalty. I mean, when you think about the Super Bowls that they won, this is the first time coming back to a Super Bowl, Charlton, that they have the same run, and they didn't have all the same running backs. Blunt was gone. Think about it. Blunt led the NFL in rushing touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
Who did he win a Super Bowl trophy with this year? Philadelphia.
The Eagles,
because New England didn't feel that he was worth having in there.
Yeah.
Okay, Long was gone. After coming in and having a pretty stellar defensive season.
Yeah.
Many other players, Charlton, this is not different. I mean, Logan Makin, an all-pro offensive lineman a couple of years ago that he shipped off to Tampa Bay.
Out of Fresno State,
after winning a Super Bowl. So this is his MO. So if players are concerned about Bill Belichick's personal feelings against them, New England is the wrong franchise to go to. This is the way that they've operated for the past decade.
Yeah.
When you look up and down the ledger and you see how many players have Super Bowl rings, 1 or 2, but they don't have 3 and 4, okay?
Yeah.
Because It's a recycling process in New England.
Yeah.
And that I'm going to move somebody out because I can get somebody in.
Yeah.
The thing you have to understand about professional sports, yes, egos are in the way.
Oh, yeah.
But the bottom line is, Charlton, everybody wants a ring.
Yeah.
One or two. I mean, look, there's more players in the Hall of Fame, in the NFL Hall of Fame, without championship rings than there are players in the NFL Hall of Fame with championship rings.
Yeah.
And you ask any of those players what's the most valuable. Yes, they appreciate being in the Hall of Fame, but they would have loved to have had a Super Bowl ring to go with it.
Oh, yeah, that definitely makes true. You know, I think back to, we go back to the Dolphins, that 72 Dolphins, and I'm sure that Coach Shula had some choices to make when they were winning, 14-0 in the regular season, and they went to the 2 playoff games and then ultimately winning the Super Bowl. And you think about that, that's no longer the standard of saying who can go undefeated now, because that may net, maybe it will happen again, but probably not, Big C. But even if it does, if you look at Philadelphia, the one thing that I take about how they won that game, and it's something that Longett talked about, and I heard LeGarrette Blount talk about it, and they both played for New England last year. And it's easy to beat someone when they're down, when they just lost the game, and you can praise them when they're up. But both of them said this is a family. That this is a family, we all stick together, we all believe in each other, we got each other's backs. Now, who doesn't say that? But they said that after coming from New England, when they're always thought about being that type of family team. You think there's a writing on the wall that they also were letting other people know that you're just only as good as your last play in New England? But who can complain about how many championships they've had, but you can't expect them to have any more thought than it's just a business, Big C. That makes sense? Is that what you're saying?
Well, Charlton, your last play in New England is better than 90% of the last plays in the NFL.
Yeah.
You have to put that into that equation.
Yeah.
Because you don't win consistently by being a disorganized franchise. Every team in the NFL is a family.
Yeah.
Every team in college football is a family. But there's something that you have to look at. It's like when Alabama lost 2 years ago to Clemson, did anybody think that the dynasty in Alabama was over, that they would be back?
Oh, they might be back, yeah.
Well, Nick was still there, so they were back, and they won a championship a year later.
Yeah.
You got to look at New England.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick is not going anywhere. There's nothing on his ledger that says I have something else to do.
Right.
I enjoy the business that I'm in. I enjoy agitating reporters. I enjoy being a narcissist when they talk to me.
Yeah.
This is what I enjoy.
Yeah.
Tom Brady's look. I like to defy everything that's ever been put out there, and that's his mindset.
Yeah.
He's a defier.
Yeah.
And when you look at this New England makeup all together, I mean, they're favored to win the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah.
But you also have to understand, Charlton, the last time that they won a Super Bowl and lost both their offensive defensive coordinator, it was two seasons before they could go back again.
Yeah.
But none of these offensive coordinators that have abandoned that organization have had any success in the NFL.
Yeah.
So you got twofold here. Will they be back in the Super Bowl, without these offensive coordinators? Or will Bill Belichick change his mindset and adjust to the new people that he has in?
Yeah, that's very true. So we know, congratulations to Philadelphia. Congratulations even to New England for getting there. And you look at the coach, I look at Peterson and how so many people have loved what he's done. He put in his time, which I love seeing coaches that get the chance to be assistants and get the job to just come in there and do it. Not knocking anyone who gets a job in media and then they pull from the media office to go and start playing around, coaching football, managing football players. So I'm proud of the fact that they did it that way, and I love seeing how they can do it going forward. Now, I want to ask your thoughts about, if you look at the NFC East, we've had throughout the history of, in that conference, the Cowboys, of course, they've won the most Super Bowls. And then you have the Washington Redskins, and you have the New York Giants, and now you can finally add the Philadelphia Eagles. You think about geographically all of those teams in the Northeast except for the Dallas Cowboys. Can you talk about that being maybe the premier conference? I know you look at the NFC South, you have New Orleans, you have Carolina, you have Atlanta, and they've won Super Bowls, and you have Tampa, and they won a Super Bowl back in the day over the Raiders. Would you submit the NFC East, Big C, as the premier conference in football? Every single team has won a championship, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I don't know if I could even submit it in the NFL as being the premier conference.
Oh, really?
You talked about the South.
Yeah.
And you talked about Carolina.
Yeah.
You talked about Atlanta. You talked about New Orleans. We're talking about teams that have been in the Super Bowl. Yes, teams in the East have been in the Super Bowl, but not as recently.
Yeah.
as all of those teams, Charlton.
Yeah.
And Tampa Bay is up and coming with a young roster. They kept Dirk Cutter around to give him another chance.
Yep.
Didn't abandon the ship right away.
Yeah.
But, you know, the Washington have been an eyesore for the past several years since Robert Griffin has left.
Yeah.
Now, they've upgraded the quarterback position, bringing in an Alex Smith.
Yep.
Dallas, you know, how will Jerry Jones manage his team and coach his team in this upcoming season with the new challenges?
Yeah.
The Giants, we saw them. They were on the downward flight the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And so how will they recover with this new coach in Sherman? And, you know, can Eli Manning rebound? Because he's had a couple of abysmal years back-to-back.
Yeah.
So, you know, the Eagles are a team that has everything. Like I said, they remind me of the Giants when you had Sims and Hostetler, because the following season, Hostetler was the starter.
Yeah.
Even though you had this all-pro in Sims, Hostetler remained the starter. The following year, he was gone via free agency to Oakland.
Yeah.
So what do you do in Philadelphia? You have uncertainty at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
You won a Super Bowl, but now you have a division in the locker room and uncertainty because, you know, you can't call Carson Wentz a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
No.
He's a backup quarterback on a Super Bowl winning team.
Yeah.
So the only Super Bowl winning quarterback that you have is Nick Foles.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that from ego, from a team, and a financial perspective? Because both players are in the final year of their contract.
Wow.
Do you trade Foles prior to the draft, send him to Cleveland, get their first and fourth draft pick?
Wow.
Or do you just hold on to him and lose him to free agency the following year? Because if you hold on to him, you're losing the free agency or you got to franchise him.
Well, you think about what you just brought up, Big C. They were ready to crown Carson Wentz. They were going to canonize him as the next great NFL quarterback, and he may be. But I want to ask your thoughts on anyone who saw the game. If you had the chance for Nick Foles to start the beginning of the season the same way Carson Wentz did, and that defense that they've had over the years, I mean, especially this last year where they were solid, except for in the Super Bowl they weren't great, but they were good enough, and look who they were playing against. If there's any talk about MVP, I doubt if Carson Wentz could have gone into that Super Bowl environment, even gotten them there past Atlanta and even Minnesota, and then to put on a performance the way Nick Foles did. And you tell me the NFL Super Bowl MVP is not good enough to start for your team. I think it's just a product of their system that Peterson put together, whether they had Carson Wentz or whether they had, you know, Nick Foles. I think Nick Foles would have done even better numbers-wise, that you brought up earlier, than Carson Wentz did. So I know they want to build up Carson Wentz and say he's great, and I'm not saying he's not, but I'm saying going forward, who would you put as your starting quarterback based on performance, not perception, or not based on what people want to say? What would you put the starters, Big C, if you're coaching Philadelphia Eagles? Your thoughts?
Well, as I say, this team reminds me a lot of the Giants. Right now, Nick Foles is still a starter.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a healthy Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
You have to get Carson Wentz up to 95%. And who knows how devastating that injury was. Remember, he had a couple different ligaments torn, and they didn't operate on one of them.
Like RG3.
So how
Yeah.
stable will that knee be, Charlton?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, and you're asking a lot out of that quarterback in that Philadelphia offense, mobility-wise. So, you know, you got a healthy Nick Foles who, when he was in high school, was a better basketball player than he was a football player.
Yeah.
So, and he showed that ability, you know, to move with and without the football.
Yeah.
I understand that you know, Carson Wentz is that prototypical guy that you want to have behind the center for a decade.
Yeah.
But you got a guy, when you run an offense that he's comfortable with. Now, you got to realize when he was in Arizona, they ran an offense that he was comfortable with. Chip Kelly took some nuances of what he did in college, took some nuances of what he did in the pros, and he incorporated those with Carson Wentz. Just 3 or 4 years ago, Carson Wentz was the hottest quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
All-pro quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's not like he hasn't been on the main stage before.
Yeah.
And he demonstrated that he was undaunted in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You know, he had 3 games where he was the underdog. 3 games. Matt Ryan was supposed to have outplayed him.
Yeah.
Case Keenum was supposed to have outplayed him. Tom Brady was supposed to outplay him. And that was close. Look, you got to take away the yardage and look at the percentage of completions that Brady had.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't a 60% passer in the game.
Yeah.
So, you know, he outplayed him, and he was able to catch the ball where Brady wasn't. So he had an advantage there.
I want to bring your thoughts on something after I bring this point up. I want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league, when you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you at 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. I think about what Colin Kaepernick meant to the world of the NFL, to the NFL universe this year, Big C, and with the stance that he had for equality, and a lot of people are talking about that now, and I appreciate that, and I want to bring up one of the guys, and Malcolm Jenkins, for the Philadelphia Eagles. He was one of those guys with Kaepernick, but did not get, shouted down as much as Kaepernick, but they both stood up for opportunities for all people and equality everywhere. And I really want to applaud Jenkins with that, and the fact that he won a Super Bowl this year, and he was part of, I guess, maybe one of the top 2 or 3 guys in trying to ask for social justice reform and criminal justice reform, and he gets a Super Bowl, and he also got the chance, because of what Kaepernick started, to get some movement where the NFL is going to actually do some things. I want to bring it to this point. Tony Dungy, we know he won a Super Bowl when he's with the Indianapolis Colts, but he was also a quarterback in college. And he told that story on NBC Sports, where when he was being looked at by NFL teams, they told him that they wanted him to change his position. And then they brought up the Doug Williams story, Big C. Now, the coach that is slipping my mind, the coach for the Washington Redskins, Joe Gibbs. They had this story on Joe Gibbs that I think should be more told. I think it should be more told because it's in alignment with Colin Kaepernick stood up for. Joe Gibbs took such a chance on bringing in Doug Williams, who was up for number 4 in the Heisman Trophy voting, Big C, that year when he was at Grambling State. Number 4.
75.
Well, I knew you would know that. But here's Gibbs saying, I'm going to get the best player. And the fact that they drafted him first to Tampa, now Gibbs didn't worry about what about the social pressures and what if people in the good old boys don't like me, or what if the good old boys don't let me go golfing with them anymore. That man did what was right and made Doug a part of his family, not just as a player, but they're still friends 40 years later. Can you please talk about what that meant for Dungy to have such pride and respect for Gibbs, and also being proud of what Doug Williams did when he won his Super Bowl, Big C, back in the day? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, there's been so many African-American athletes throughout the history of the NFL have been forced to change positions. We had spoke about the great Warren Moon on many shows, who was told that he couldn't play quarterback in the NFL, that he could play receiver or defensive back. So he took a hiatus up to Canada.
Yep.
And had found success. Then all of a sudden they said, I guess you can play. You won several championships up there.
Yep.
Maybe you can play down here.
Yeah.
I always go back to Marlon Briscoe, who played quarterback for the Denver Broncos, who went 9-1 as a starter. He was a quarterback in college. They converted him to a receiver. Mike Tripucka got hurt at quarterback for the Broncos. They brought Briscoe back over to the other side of the ball.
Yeah.
After going 9-1 after replacing Tripucka, he never took another snap in the NFL again, Charlton.
Wow.
So, these things, we have black quarterbacks that's been around a long time. You think about Sean King, who took Tampa Bay to an NFC championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles.
That's right.
And lost his job the following year.
Yeah.
And there's many others. Think about how long Vince Evans played in the NFL at quarterback. 18 years, Charlton.
Yep.
Out of USC. Rodney Peete, another quarterback who competed against Troy Aikman in the Pac-10 conference, Pac-12 conference out there.
Yeah.
And actually was the Johnny Unitas Award winner as a senior and finished second in the Heisman voting to Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
And spent a long time in the NFL, but people didn't draft him high. He was the top-rated quarterback, winning all the awards, but he was only a 3rd or 4th round draft pick coming out of college.
Yeah.
So it's about having opportunity. Doug Williams got that when John McKay drafted him down in Tampa Bay, 1st overall.
Yeah.
But to an abysmal organization. He went to the United States Football League. Charlton played with the Oklahoma Outlaws for a couple of seasons.
That's right.
Prior to Donald Trump having that league disbanded. and got an opportunity in the NFL once again with the Washington Redskins.
Yeah.
Embarrassed John Elway with 5 touchdown passes.
Yep.
In a Super Bowl. Never got a chance to take a snap at quarterback again, Charlton.
Yeah.
And so that's the social injustice in sports just like in society.
Yeah.
You embarrass the golden boy, and we'll find a way not to keep you around.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you know so much about all of that stuff. I couldn't Google as fast as what you were coming up with this fast, Big C, but I think it's so poignant because the same thing, and Tony Dungy's respected by everyone in football and media too, even though he's somewhat passive. That's just a fact. He's not as vocal as he could be in his position of power because even him, he knows you got to kind of keep your place if you want to keep your job. So I'm not saying he should or shouldn't do anything. But the fact you have these young black men, this nouveau riche generation of young black men that are saying to the NFL, and even POTUS with all his cricket shenanigans going on in Washington, that we're not going to be silenced, just like the Me Too movement, no more. And when I hear Tony Dungy have a kind of a lachrymose speech, he was kind of shook up about saying how he was touched by Doug Williams getting the chance to play in the Super Bowl. And you look at all the young black boys throughout the history of this country who've been told, no, you can't do it, you're not smart enough, you're not bright enough, you can't figure it out, it's over your head, just go play another sport on the field, but we're not going to let you play quarterback because that's for the white guy.
Well, Charlton, think about this. Think about how many young African-American athletes that Doug Williams inspired. Not just in football, but basketball, baseball, track and field.
Yeah.
What you've been told that you could not do. It was a Jesse Owens moment, Charlton.
Oh, yeah.
What Doug Williams did in the Super Bowl against the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
Jesse Owens was challenged by the world that you can't do this. Jack Johnson was challenged by the world that you can't beat these white guys.
Yeah.
You're not good enough. You're subordinate to them. Yet he dominated. Doug Williams was the same way. You think about all the black quarterbacks that had came before him that never got an opportunity to take a snap in the NFL.
Yeah.
Doug Williams was their Calder, Charlton.
Yeah.
He was that bright light that they all looked at and smiled at because he said, I helped pave the way for him, which he did. There were so many young African-American quarterbacks in college that never got that chance.
Yeah.
Because people were in fear, just like when slaves weren't allowed to read.
Yeah.
Because they said, well, if they can read, then they're just as intelligent as us, so we won't let them read.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that happened with these African-American quarterbacks over time. That way that Doug Williams took the starting snap in the Super Bowl, I mean, every African-American football player in the history of the NFL that was alive was the proudest moment that they all had.
Yeah.
Because at that point, we had all arrived, Charlton.
Yeah. And I got that. I mean, that's... To me, I still remember how that was, and people were looking like, well, do you think he can make it? Like, hell, he's a pro football player. He's already made it. But I want to get your thoughts on this because you've seen a lot more than I have in the decision-making that goes on, especially when someone's going to give you the chance to do a national broadcast. What is it about Joe Gibbs, going way back in the day, where Joe Gibbs had the same kind of vision to just be fair, that you couldn't find one of the 32 owners this year of the NFL that were willing to get the best player. I'm not saying cap the best quarterback, but I know he's would be the top 20, at least maybe the top 15, if he were given the same chance that Nick Foles got yesterday in the Super Bowl, Big C. I mean, just based on his numbers and what he did when they had a winning team. What is it about Joe Gibbs that makes Joe Gibbs different than the white guys that say, no, we're not going to give you an opportunity. We just want somebody white who's going to come in and throw and hand off the football. What is it about Joe Gibbs that other owners that can learn, you know what, it's okay to do the right thing, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I look at Nick Foles talking.
Yeah.
And, I heard all these words from the media about Colin Kaepernick. Well, we don't know if he wants to play football. We don't know if he's committed.
Yeah.
Nick Foles said he wasn't committed.
Yeah.
He didn't want to play anymore. He was going to retire.
Yep.
Colin Kaepernick has never said that, but Nick Foles said, I'm going to retire. I don't want to play this game any longer.
Yeah.
But $7 million made him change his mind.
You think?
We'll give you $7 million to come hold a clipboard.
Yeah.
Because we have a starting quarterback. We don't even want you to play.
Yeah.
But we will give you $7 million. We're not even telling you you're coming in competing for the starting job.
Yeah.
You're coming in to be a $7 million secretary.
Yeah.
Now, so you're going to make $7 million over a clipboard.
I go.
Damn the motivation. You don't need to be motivated.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's what they told him, but yet everybody in the media said, well, Colin Kaepernick seems to be not motivated.
Wow.
But no one offered him $5 million. No one offered him $2 million, Charleston.
Yeah.
And he said he would play for the minimum.
Yeah.
He said he would play. Nick Foles said, I'm ready to retire. I don't want to play this game anymore.
Yeah.
So it's about what you look like, what the perception is for you through the media. The media is speaking for athletes all the time.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to tell Nick Foles' story until after he was a winner.
Exactly.
Because
exactly.
he had a lot of things that, well, maybe he should have just did what he wanted to do, quit.
Yeah. Yep. And I think back to, and I'm so glad, and this is why I'm so proud when black men are not afraid. And I know there's an older generation that says, well, you know, you don't want to do anything wrong. You don't want to upset somebody, because they dealt with law enforcement showing up and doing some bad things to them. We all know those stories exist, okay? If you don't know that, you can read the Kerner Commission. You can Google that. But we all know those things happen. So I'm proud of Joe Gibbs, who's gone on to have a race team, to just hear that story, that no one would have known that story had Doug Williams not been given the opportunity. That not everybody white is crooked. And I know that's perception when you have owners who were mostly white, except for one, and Khan, for Jacksonville's the only one that's not. But there seems to be an easiness for white men to do the wrong thing. And you can Google that, whether it's the right to vote. You can look at Trump in the White House and how crooked they are, and all their abilities to try to suppress women who try to say you can't sexually harass me. Okay, I'm going to sue you now. We know that, but in society, whether it was Jackie Robinson and Blanche Ritchie trying to integrate baseball, it was never about these white guys doing the right thing. Even with the integration of basketball, you talked about that, how that happened with Texas Southern. There's so much of a history. Even to the 2017 NFL, National Football League, there's a propensity of white men willing to do the wrong thing. And I'm glad that Joe Gibbs stuck his neck out and didn't care about being ostracized by some of the good old boys, because he had a bigger stake against him back in the day had they lost that Super Bowl, Big C. It was Joe Gibbs that put his own reputation on the line, because he could have, just like the other owners, they could have gotten Doug Williams, but they didn't want to get a black guy. And Tony Dungy talked about that. When can more white guys learn to be like a Joe Gibbs, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you hire people who look like you. You go out and play golf with people who look like you. You go to dinner with people who look like you. And so you want to pay the guy the most that looks like you. That's the history of the NFL. And so it's hard to give somebody that type of money and he doesn't look like you. It's very rare that an owner wants to give a minority player $100 million and feel comfortable with it.
Wow.
Because he's changed the whole social structure of the community that he's in. When he's done something like that, people say, well, you know, but if you're going to pay a player based on productivity,
yep.
You know, how do you give Kirk Cousins $30 million?
Oh, my goodness.
You have to ask that question.
Brock
How do you
Osweiler.
give Kirk Cousins $30 million? And I'll tell you this, Charlton, Washington will most likely sign him to that franchise contract of about $34 million and then trade him. That's what they're going to do. You're going to give this guy $34 million, and so you just don't lose him as an unrestricted free agent.
Yep.
Then you're going to trade him. And why is that? It doesn't make sense. Let him go. He hasn't won anything anyway.
Never won a playoff game. Not even one. Not even one playoff game has he won. But they trot him out on TV as if he's Joe Montana 30 years ago, and he's not. And I just hate seeing that. And so when I heard of the whole Super Bowl, Big C, and I like the game, I like high-scoring teams, but of all of the stories that were told about these two teams, that story that Tony Dungy told, it was touching to me, Big C, because it's not known by mainstream media, okay? That story that they showed with Gibbs and also, you know, Williams having that conversation where they hang out with each other's families, that's not mainstream conversation. Because if those were mainstream conversations, I doubt we would have a lot of racism left in the NFL. Because he's a Super Bowl champion coach. He has all the respect that anyone could want from a coach. And the owners listen to him. When he's speaking, they listen. I think the NFL would listen when Joe Gibbs spoke. And I'm not saying that he had to come out and say anything political. But when somebody's doing wrong and you do the right thing, when he was one of 32 owners that could have said, well, I'm not going to hire a black guy. I don't want to get any backlash. He could have been like all the other sycophants that made Warren Moon go to Canada and win several Grey Cups. The same kind of sycophant behavior that would not give Tony Dungy a job. Of all these things, the same thing that kind of lambastes Cam Newton every time in the media. You talked about so many other great quarterbacks. There's one, Dickey, I think, that played for the Raiders back in the day. the Joe Gilliam for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they've always been relegated to some second-class citizen or second-class quarterback. And it's going to take white men who are not afraid, and if you're not a bigot, they stand up for people who are maybe pushed aside, and you know it. That's why I have a lot more respect for Joe Gibbs today than I ever had, and I never met the man. But that story, Big C, I wish it would have been told more. And I want to get your last thought on that before we touch on something else. Do you think that there's a role for him in the National Football League, even if it's just as someone who can come in and maybe add civility to the thing? Does that make any sense?
Well, when you look at Joe Gibbs, his days in football are done. When you look at the quarterback, he works with the Washington Redskins. He's in management.
Doug Williams,
Doug Williams been around.
Yeah.
But, I look at this Super Bowl here, Charlton, when you look at the backfield of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a backfield full of cast-offs. You got Blunt, who was a cast-off from New England. You got Jai, who was a cast-off from Miami. Those are African-Americans. Nobody wanted them. You look at Foles. He was a cast-off from the Rams. Nobody wanted him. Clements was a free agent running back.
Yep.
So when you think about this team, this is a Super Bowl championship team that had 4 free agents as mainstays in their backfield.
Wow.
4.
Yeah.
And also, Dick Foles caught a touchdown.
Yeah.
He caught a touchdown from a free agent third string tight end.
Yeah.
That was a minority.
Yeah.
So when you look at teams saying, okay, well, your friends Mel Kiper,
yeah, they're not my friends.
This weekend
yeah.
I'm saying, what builds an NFL team?
Yeah.
What was Mel Kiper thinking yesterday when he looked at that Philadelphia backfield? Said they got a free agent in Blunt that nobody drafted out of Oregon. You got a Jai, who was a 4th-round draft pick out of Miami.
Yep.
Okay. You got Clements, who was a free agent undrafted.
Yeah.
You got Nick Foles, who was a 3rd-round draft pick and only scouted out by Philadelphia when he came out of Arizona.
Yeah.
And was a cast-off from the Rams.
Yeah.
Now, this is a team. This is your buddy Mel Kiper's ideal draft squad.
Yeah.
Okay. These are guys that he's projecting as franchise players. You build around them. The guys that Mel Kiper didn't give a damn about.
Yep.
Went out and won a Super Bowl yesterday.
Isn't that something? Sometimes you just got to Google things, and that's why I appreciate your knowledge and going way back when we talked about the championship games that have played in the past to all the new ones from Green Bay, Kansas City, back in '67 to now New England and Philadelphia. Congratulations, Philadelphia, 41-33. You are now the Super Bowl champions. That means you're champion of the universe. So congratulations to that. Big C, in the last segment, I want to get your thoughts on 2 players specifically that you've talked about for a long time. It was great seeing Boom doing the highlights also on ESPN. Great seeing Boomer come back and do his thing. Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, Ray Lewis, and many others that were, given the green light for the induction into the NFL Hall of Fame. And you talked about Terrell Owens, who a lot of people brought up his personality and how he wasn't maybe the best teammate, but you want him on your team. Same thing with Randy Moss at times. Ray Lewis, we know he's had some issues too. But give me your thoughts on those 3 players. What's it mean to you to see guys that are held out for too long, especially in T.O., Big C? Everywhere he's gone, his team has been successful. Give me your thoughts on those 3 guys, especially, and anyone else you want to toss in, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, those 3 guys are great, Charlton, along with Brian Urlacher. Well, I want to talk about Jerry Kramer and Robert Brazile.
Yeah.
2 guys that were voted in by the Veteran Committee who's waited way too long because they weren't of this modern era. Think about Jerry Kramer.
Yeah.
He won Super Bowl. He won NFL championships. Actually has 5 of them altogether. He has 5 championship rings, Dalton.
Wow.
The offensive lineman, of the Green Bay Packers. Robert Brazile, one of the great defensive linemen in NFL history, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you think about those guys who are not on SportsCenter, it's easy to elect a Brian Urlacher because you saw him every play of his NFL career.
Yep.
Ray Lewis, every play of his NFL career. Randy Moss as well as Terrell Owens.
Yeah.
Who were 2 of the greatest receivers in NFL history. When they retired, Charlton, they were number 2 and 3 on the list. But neither one of them were media darlings. And so when you think about what they've had to go through to get into the Hall of Fame and have to wait because you're saying that players are better than them, Charlton. This reminds me of the great Art Monk when he retired from the NFL, Charlton. He was the NFL's all-time reception leader and yardage leader with the Washington Redskins.
Wow.
Took him 19 years to get into the Hall of Fame because he would not give interviews to the media after the game.
Yeah.
He made them work for the story that they wanted to create if they weren't going to twist the words that he said.
Yeah.
And so they punished him. And so the guys who didn't vote for Art Monk should have lost their vote from the media.
Yeah.
And that's how, reprimand them like you reprimand players for doing something inappropriate.
Yeah.
That you cannot punish a player because of your personal feelings. You vote players in based on their merits. It's just like with Jerry Kramer.
Yeah.
You have 5 championship rings, and
Yep.
you haven't played since the 60s, and you're just now getting into the Hall of Fame some 45 years later.
Yeah.
That's unfair, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's totally unfair. So I praise the younger players who are getting in. I mean, and even when you look at Ray Lewis, who has the speckled pass of obstruction
Yeah.
and other things that he's done.
Yep.
And I mean, yes, he was a tremendous middle linebacker as well as Urlacher.
Yeah.
Their on the field play spoke for itself. But think about that. When you have a shady pass and you get in just as quick as guys who had the weight, who were the elite in their positions, Charlton,
Yeah.
that's a question mark and a black eye on the media who are voting people in.
Well, think about another player that you're very proud of his play. Jim Plunkett. Where's Jim Plunkett in these conversations? 2-time Super Bowl winner, led the Raiders to glory twice. And I just think, and he did it under 2 coaches, under Flores and also under Madden. No, it was under Flores both times, not Madden, but
under
Flores.
Flores.
Under Flores.
But he was a Heisman Trophy
Yeah.
winner, Charlton.
Yeah.
He was a cast-off, number 1 draft pick by the Boston Patriots at that time.
Yep.
A cast-off, went to San Francisco, played there under Monty Clark for a couple of years, backed up Steve DeBerg. Was a cast-off, picked up by the late Al Davis
Yeah.
to back up Dan Passerini, a quarterback that was drafted 2 positions after him in that 1970 draft, Charlton.
Wow.
By the Houston Oilers.
Yeah.
And he was traded for Kenny Stabler. Dan Passerini got hurt in preseason. Jim Plunkett never looked back. 2 Super Bowls over 3 seasons.
Wow.
What he produced for the Raiders.
Yeah.
Now you go and look at the quarterbacks in the NFL Hall of Fame and see how many of them have more Super Bowl wins than a Jim Plunkett. And tell me if Jim Plunkett is not worthy
Yeah.
of being in there.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, he's not a Caucasian quarterback. And if he were a Caucasian quarterback, I'm going back to Gibbs. I'm not paraphrasing Joe Gibbs at all. But minorities with skin color, that real suntan, sometimes that nastiness that we got to get past is still there. And there's too many people that it still matters for. And people can say, yeah, well, that's not it. And you just brought up names of 2 Super Bowl quarterbacks
Well, think about this, Charlton.
Yeah.
Joe Theismann was in that same draft class as Jim Plunkett.
Yep.
Joe Theismann was drafted as a defensive back by the Miami Dolphins. He went to Canada, okay?
Yep.
He came back. He won 1 Super Bowl with the Redskins. He's in the NFL Hall of Fame, Charlton. In the NFL Hall of Fame. And there's a dozen quarterbacks in the NFL Hall of Fame, Charlton, that never won a Super Bowl that played in the Super Bowl era.
Yeah.
Kurt Warner won 1. He's in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
1.
Yep.
Joe Namath won 1.
Yeah.
Bart Starr won 2. Lynn Dawson won 1.
Yeah.
There's a whole list of quarterbacks, Chelsea, in the Hall of Fame that do not exceed Jim Plunkett's Super Bowl record.
Yeah. No, Big C,
And
that's
he's
yeah.
not in. And he's 70 years old now, Chelsea.
Wow. That is excellent knowledge. Going back to the old timers that were doing their thing before ESPN and Fox Sports were out there doing research or with the analytics, whatever you call it. But I'm glad you brought up that fact, because I hope that if it's based on your results and not on if people liked you or not. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are well liked. They're not getting voted into anything. Give it to the guys that have earned it, and the numbers back it up. Big C, last thoughts on the Super Bowl. I know we've talked about so many championship games going into it last week, and we just saw what I thought was a good Super Bowl, not the best Super Bowl, but you've seen all of them, Big C. How would this one rank in your mind as one of the top 10 Super Bowls, Big C, of the NFL? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, statistically, it's number 1, Charlton. Excitement, it was a little lacking.
Yeah.
Because there was no intimidation in the game, Charlton. You think about 1 quarterback sack, 1 interception. I like to see some defense. Defense electrifies crowds. Yes,
Yeah.
you're going to score touchdowns.
Yeah.
But there was no big hits in this game other than the 1 hit against Cook
Yeah.
that left him concussed.
Yeah.
And that was a blindside shot. But, Charlton, what I was most disappointed in was the void of tackling from all the defensive backs on the team, Charlton. There was no one going up there just everyone's trying to grab somebody by the shoulder. No one grabs people by the legs anymore and take them down. They let them run down the field for another 15 yards instead of making a tackle.
Yeah.
And so that disappoints me is that I'm used to seeing pain and punishment as a defensive player. That excited me. Okay? That's that euphoria. Okay? In the mainstream world, that's that cocaine. All right? That kicks it in for you. But when no one's hitting anybody, it's like, it's like, we've all seen that Pop Warner commercial on TV. Where the dad's getting into the car and he pulls off the plate with the kid talking about participation trophy. And that's what that game reminded me of last night, that everybody was out there for a participation ring.
Yeah, they all got that participation trophy. So, I love the NFL. I love everything that we went through. I'm so proud of guys like Joe Gibbs that did something without having a camera in his face, and he gave Doug Williams an opportunity when the rest of the league said no. And we still have some of that garbage going on today. I'm happy for Nick Foles to be a guy that was given an opportunity, unlike Kaepernick, given an opportunity. Maybe that will come around, who knows. But I'm proud of everyone that puts in the time to make this a great game that we all love so much. So again, congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. You are the champions of the universe. Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bundini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you've got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, we're going to go through this funk that we have no football for some time. I guess the NBA is going to have to kick off. And I tell you, one team that's not looking forward to anything, and that's the Cleveland Browns. They don't want to be on national television again.
The Cavs,
The Cavaliers have lost 8 consecutive nationally televised games. So if they've lost 8 consecutive, tell me how do they broadcast the playoffs?
That's true, Big C. Well, I'm sure we'll have to find out. And you can always find out with us every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. We always want to tell you there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no woman should ever have to go through that garbage on her own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.